I am Megan and welcome to Battle Royale with Cheese, the website you can get all of your TV and film news reviews and trailers. And this video is going to be on episode 3 of AlienEarth. Once again, before I start my probably very rambled thoughts on this episode, I am just going to say some of the stuff that I will talk about is going to be spoilerish. All the videos I'm going to do for AlienEarth episodes are probably going to include spoilers in them. I'll put that in the title and the thumbnail, but just to warn you, this video might include spoilers for episode 3. A lot happened. So in the last episode, I mentioned so much in episode 2 that I forgot to mention we fully see a xenomorph in episode 2. And there's a really cool chase scene involving a hermit who is Wendy's brother. Completely forgot to mention that. I thought that was really cool and I really enjoyed it. And this one kind of does also start with an action scene. It continues on from the end of the last episode where Hermit got basically thrown down the further bottom of the ship by a xenomorph, and Wendy followed on, told slightly to stick around and play lookout, essentially. And that's how the last episode ended. So we continue on from there, and I think the first scene with the xenomorph in this episode is really cool. I really liked it. It shows that despite the fact that they are monsters, they are intelligent. They set up, the xenomorph sets up a trap to trap Wendy and attacks them, her and her brother from that point. So this show does a good thing so far of showing you, yes, they're completely monstrous and feral, but they are also intelligent as well. But this does lead to a fight with a xenomorph, which does ultimately break Wendy. Wendy is pretty much out for most of this episode, which I quite liked because it gives room for the other synthetics to actually have their moments, and they do. So Nibs, in the beginning, she is looking at one of the creatures with the multiple eyes that attacked her in the last episode. And in between this, there's flashbacks of when she was getting her transition into a synthetic body. This carries on my theory, and there's something else that happens at the very end as well, but this carries on my theory that I think these creatures are being brought here onto Earth to help with the synthetic transition. I don't know how yet, because obviously it's Prodigy and Wayland have obviously got their political conflict, so I don't really know how it works yet, but I do have a feeling that's probably where it's going. And also at the very end, I'm just going to talk about it now, but at the very end, Kirsch and the team bring on an alien egg, the beheaded xenomorph that Wendy beheaded, and a bunch of the other specimens from the research vessel. They bring it into Prodigy Corp to be studied. And near the end, Kirsch is essentially dissecting one of the alien eggs and doing experiments on it, cutting it open, that kind of thing. But at the same time, Wendy has woken up at that point. This is the very end of the episode, but I'm skipping to that point now because it goes into my theory, where at the same time as the facehugger is being cut open, tased and experimented on, she is also feeling those effects. So this is what I talked about with the last video as well, the second episode, where she could hear the alien eggs before anyone else. So I think there's a connection there, but I can't quite figure out what that connection is or how it works yet. I can't quite figure it out, but I have a feeling that's where it's going. Sticking with the xenomorph eggs for the moment as well, just while we're still talking about it. Once they are put into Prodigy Corp and the labs, the Prodigy owner and creator of the company wants to have a look at the eggs, and the egg, upon seeing a human host, opens up and is about to, jump out. Kirsch gets him locked out of that room and he goes, what are you doing? Why did you do that? And this is the moment where we get the explanation of how the facehuggers work, how it morphs into a xenomorph, and the chest burster and all that lot. But I've explained this with other films, actually with superhero films recently, interestingly, that we know how Alien works. We know how the xenomorph works. We know how the facehugger works. You just need that quick information, that quick explanation for new fans to be like, okay, this is how it works. cool, we can get on with the rest of the episode. You don't need this long, drawn out thing now, because there's, how many films in the franchise now? But my point being is that we don't need this long explanation and demonstration of how they work. You can just go, this is how it is, this is how it works. I saw it because of this. Kirsch is a cyborg, and he looked into the ship's computers and found out that way. Very quick explanation, and we did see that in the previous episode. So yeah, we know that he's already done that. And I quite like that as well, for fans of the franchise who already know how this works, can just go, okay, very quick explanation because we already know. And for new fans, again, it's a quick explanation for them to just quickly understand and easily understand how this works. And then I also said that this episode actually gives more scenes to the other synthetics, which I do like, because Wendy is broken pretty much at the start. She is pretty much out of, powered down for most of this episode, or pretty much all of it actually. So this gives the episode a chance to highlight the other synthetics. So Nibs I've already talked about, Curly is another one, and there's a scene, I think it's really interesting, Curly's scene when she goes to talk to the Prodigy creator, and basically says, why is Wendy your favourite? Nibs also questions this as well at the beginning of the episode. And they just explain, she was the first one, so he has a special connection with that. But Curly, that's not a good enough explanation. That's not a good enough reason. So she actually goes to meet the creator and says, why is that? The reason you've given isn't good enough. And they eventually get into another discussion, and she explains that, Wendy's not that special because she has, a really powerful computer for a brain, a new memory core, a new CPU instead of blood and bones. And all she's doing with that is trying to find her brother Hermit. And Curly explains that since she's become a synthetic, she's used the new brain and her new body to actually learn specific skills. For example, she says, I've learned French, like I'm fluent in French now. And he goes, oh really, when was that? And she goes, last week, I learnt it very, very quickly. And she does also prove this as well. And I think that's an interesting thing to highlight, is that, they have so much potential now in terms of what their brain and their new bodies can do. But also, there was something that the creator brought up in the last episode, and I forgot to talk about this, because I thought it was just going to be a one-off thing. But he basically says that the synthetic program was created because he wants to talk to someone smarter than him. And he hasn't felt that he's met someone like that yet. So I think this scene was interesting because you could see the light bulb go off in his head as she was talking, as Curly was talking. And he just goes, okay, so I'm going to give you some reading material to read up on, and some listening material to expand your intelligence. So I think she'll end up becoming that smarter person. Well, synthetic, but you get what I mean, smarter person. Because she does also say, I aim to be smarter than you. And he's quite supportive, to be fair. I thought he was going to be a bit I thought he was going to see that as a threat, but I think it's interesting. He does have a sympathetic side and a supportive side, and I think he sees these synthetics as, something special to him. So I think that's really interesting. That scene was really interesting and needed to be there as well. And then we have Slightly and Smee. So I mentioned that Slightly stayed behind after Wendy went after her brother and the Xenomorph. He ends up reuniting with Smee, who's another synthetic who I haven't really talked about too much because he hasn't really played too much of a big role yet. But I think what I like with them reuniting is that they are still kids. I think these two characters do highlight that, they may look like adults, but they are kids. They talk like children, they act like children, their mannerisms and the way they're speaking is like that. When they reunite, they're sort of saying, where are we? What part of the ship are we on? All quite serious. What are these eggs? I don't know. And Smee goes, oh, okay. Well, anyway, I found all these big space bugs, and they were amazing, and they were gruesome and disgusting. And it's like a kid where it's like, you change topics so quickly, or you want to go on to something that they're going to enjoy more and they're going to get more happiness from and find more exciting, because they clearly find, you know, the steel eggs just very boring. But I think that was interesting. But Morrow, who is the cyborg who was originally on the research vessel, finds them, and so a few things happen from this, and I like that this episode gives Morrow actually a more sympathetic side. He is a cyborg, which means he is part human. And he basically says that, you know, I was given a mission, and that even meant that if I had to kill my friends, aka the crew, to do it, I would have to do that. Like, what would you guys do in that situation? And at one point he asks slightly, oh, at what point is a human not a human? And then the other way around, slightly accidentally asks, oh, are you like a parent? Or, you know, do you have... I can't remember what it was. It was something to do with parents that Morrow finds a bit weird. It's just like, wait, why would you say that? Because he just thinks they're just robots or artificial intelligence. But you've also got to remember that this synthetic program is supposed to be a secret. And I spoke about this in the last video, where Slightly tends to blab. So, again, he's blabbing. And this further continues on as well, when Morrow talks to him telepathically and basically asks him to be his friend and like someone to have a connection to, because he said, you know, all of my friends are dead. I had to kill them when the specimens got out, and I have no one now. So Slightly, are you going to be my friend? But that was a really tense moment, because you could tell that Slightly was being careful about what he said this time. I think as the series goes on, I think he is going to start realising he has to be a bit more careful with how he speaks, but also what he says. But ultimately, from that conversation, Morrow does figure out that, oh, Smee and Slightly are children. Which he's not supposed to know about. So, yay, well done, Slightly. So both Hermit and Morrow know about the programme when no one was supposed to know. And even Slightly, after basically messing up, he's going like, oh, it's a secret, like I'm not supposed to tell you. It's like, he already knows, he's already figured it out. So I think at some point he's going to learn not to blab. I think as the series goes on, I think my theory about the synthetics using alien DNA of some kind is going to be correct, because there's too much pointing to that theory. But overall, really interesting episode. Again, I'm actually really enjoying this show, and I think the pacing was a little all over the place, because it did start off quite fast paced because it was continuing on from the last episode, but I still think it was interesting and has a lot to say about the workings of the synthetics mindset and how they work, and it gave the other synthetics more of a chance to have more screen time, which I quite like. Plus, I think Hermit is going to end up having a chest burster. I forgot to mention this. This is literally the last scene of the episode. So obviously he also gets injured after the opening scene. And Prodigy, essentially the alien that they've extracted from the facehugger successfully, they transport it to the operating room or the waiting room where Hermit is, and they essentially implant it into his lungs. So I think he's going to end up with a chest burster. I don't think that's going to be fun for him. And I don't think Wendy's going to be particularly happy, but I do also think if she has a connection to these creatures, I do wonder if that connection to her brother is going to get stronger in some way. So I think that I think Prodigy are dealing with stuff they don't realise they don't know how to handle. I think they're going to be in hot water very, very quickly. I don't think it's going to go well for them ultimately. But once again, this was my rambling sort of thoughts / review on episode 3 of AlienEarth. I really, really like this episode. I'm really enjoying this show so far. and I'm very interested to know how it's going to continue on. We're near the halfway mark point, because I think this show's only got 8 episodes. I was Megan, this is Battle Royale with Cheese, see you soon.